when we're meeting the client where they are in that conversation, and we are saying yes to wherever that is, we can continue to highlight how spirituality is a major component of recovery. Because when we realize that we're not alone, when we realize that there's a source out there, when we feel like the world is out to get us, and we can say, but God, please help me, there's relief, there's peace, there's serenity that's available. So it's being willing to meet where they are while also giving them hope.
When pursuing a recovery process, whether that's from mental health or addiction, most people at some stage of that process are going to ask themselves, what is spirituality? How am I going to use this to help myself get through this difficult stage of my life? Up next, we're going to talk with Lark Oxler, one of the therapists here at Midwest Recovery Centers that has a background in spiritual psychology. She meets each patient where they are in their journey of spirituality and how to put that into a daily practice that can help you have a successful recovery process. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Finding Mental Wellness. I'm your host, Taylor Brown, and today I'm very excited to introduce Lark Oxler, one of our therapists here at Midwest Recovery Centers. Lark, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this is one that I am very, very personally excited to explore and have with you, and I'm excited for our listeners and our viewers to watch. You are a spiritual psychology focused therapist here at MRC. I mean, among many other things, but I think that's going to be a very exciting conversation. I know from my own personal experience that I suffered a relapse 5 years into my recovery process. And I do believe that was because I failed to enlarge my spiritual connection to a higher power, to God, to that inner compass that kind of drives our decisions and our motives and our actions. And so I am personally very excited to explore this a lot more. And yeah, so why don't we start with share a little bit about your background and where you come from and how you got into this field, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I was living in Los Angeles and I was pursuing acting, and I happened to be sober at the time, and I was realizing that I was not in alignment with that career path. And I had prayed to God and said, I don't know what my next move is. And I opened up a newspaper. That's how long ago it was. I opened up a newspaper and there was this article about, like, it was a full spread about this program at the University of Santa Monica for a master's in spiritual psychology. And I had prayed saying, what is my next move? And so I called them up and I said, I'm so interested in this. Tell me more. And they're like, what are you doing tonight? There's an open house. And I said, I just got called off of my job because it was raining and I was supposed to wait tables outside. And it never rains in Los Angeles. And so I went to this open house and I was obsessed. But I couldn't afford it. And so I put it off, put it off, put it off. And then in 2008, it was very clear that this was what I needed to do. I needed to go to this school, and so I figured out a way. And I studied for 2 years. The program is amazing, and, yeah, the place that I got to as a result of the curriculum in that program was, "No, you are not in alignment with this pursuit anymore. You are in alignment with helping others. You are in alignment with your spirituality, with your concept of a higher power." And so then that's when I ended up meeting somebody, getting married, and having kids, and then creating this life. Um, but I'll tell you this bit of the story is how I got to MRC is one of my favorite stories, is that I had a loved one go through this program, and I watched his life change exponentially, and he just did what he was asked. He was what was suggested of him, he did, and his life each year got better and better, and he ended up getting, like, his dream job. He's 4 or 5 years sober at the time, and I was in a survival job myself, and I was like, "This isn't it for me. I need to be doing what my degree gave me. I need to be a guidance counselor. I need to be um, in ministerial work, or I need to be in substance abuse counseling." And he opens up his computer, he's like, "Oh my god, MRC is hiring." And he's like, "You need to send your stuff." And so I did, and I had a conversation with the clinical director and the assistant clinical director, and it was an absolute fit.
I have to say that's just amazing. I actually have the pleasure of obviously I know your ex-husband, and I believe I was a house manager when he came through, and that was an incredible thing to witness, to see the healthy boundaries that your family had, and to watch him take the man. It's making me emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was. It's not very often that you suggest to somebody what to do that's really difficult, and they actually do it, It's I mean, most of the time, you're trying to advise these clients, and you're trying to help them, and you know what ought to happen, but you also see them struggle with how difficult it is to implement that change and to have those boundaries and to trust that it's gonna be okay. And, man, I remember so many times, uh, he would come to me and he would be, like, upset or distressed or emotional about the situation, and I would always just say, "Hang in there. It's gonna be okay, I promise. It's gonna come together," you know? And I didn't really know how or why, but I knew that it would be okay because I remember people told me that when I was here, and I kept thinking, like, "How? I have all this, like, wreckage, I have so much destruction, I don't know where things are gonna go. How could any of this make sense after some of these boundaries are gonna be put in place or if there's a divorce, right? What is my life gonna look like? What is gonna happen then?" And although there weren't really black and white, clear, resolute answers for me, just like there were not for your ex-husband, there was still this underlying peace and this knowing that, like, just stay the course and hang in there, things are gonna come together and make sense, right? Um,
I knew in that time when he was at MRC, there was a constant prayer, which was, "I know there is good here. This is all strange and hard, but I know there is good here. I don't know what it's gonna look like. I know God's got me. I know God's got him and our kids, and I don't know what this is gonna look like, but I know there is good here." And I just held on to that. There is good here. There is good here. God, make the crooked places straight. There is good here. And I was being advised to live the very divorced life. And there was something not in alignment with that with me. And then COVID happened, and we had to become a team, right? And we had to really come together. And because I was able to watch him do the things that he was directed to do through MRC and his significant psychic change, because of that, I was able to kinda let my, you know, boundaries needed to be strong, but also to give him a break and be able to say, "We need to help our kids." We need to be a team, and I was able to let go of that "I'm a divorced woman" thing and be like, "No, I wanna be with this person to help our family, become the best it can be," and it was because he was doing everything he was being suggested, I saw the significant change and I was able to do that, but it was also the connection to the higher power, knowing fully that something was at work here and to trust that.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, how many times in life do we have to do that, right? I mean, we're asking clients to do that every day here. And although we, again, can't even give them really an exact answer or this is why it's going to be okay or here's how it's going to end up, there needs to be that blind faith, which is very
Like
scary and it feels very vulnerable, right? So I have to ask you, kind of rewinding a little bit,
mhm.
what type of a household were you raised in? Was there a lot of spiritual concepts there? Was it religious? Was it more spiritual? What did your home life look like as a child?
um, I tell clients my story to help them, um, possibly, understand their journey with their higher power. And I tell them this part, which is I was born into a family. I was very blessed. I was very lucky. From everything from the color of my skin to the place I grew up to being upper middle class, like all those things were working in my favor, right? But I still had this deep sadness inside of me. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what caused it, but I had this feeling inside of me, this emptiness, right? But I was raised with Catholicism. I went to a private school, kindergarten through 8th grade, and then in college in high school, and then in college as well. And so I had a relationship with a higher power from the age of 4. I remember being in, Sunday school and learning he's got the whole world in his hands
Right.
and believing that and understanding that. But then I was told throughout my schooling that there's a heaven and a hell and God is a judger and you have to do good and you're a sinner and all of these lessons that I was like, I'm not really that doesn't feel good to me,
Right. Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
in 4th grade, there was this book called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume.
Mhm.
And she has this relationship with her higher power that's like a diary entry, like, "Hey, God, it's me." And I really hooked into that, and I started having this kind of friendship with my higher power where I was like, "Oh, so and so doesn't like me, God. What should I do?" Or I would have a crush on a boy and talk to my higher power. And it was lighter, and so it started to really not make sense for me to also believe that this was a higher power that was going to judge me, because I felt so loved by it, right? And then I went in high school, I went on this retreat that was so beautiful and empowering, and it was people saying that they loved each other and that God was in them, and I just felt this spirit, and I was so excited, I couldn't wait to go to church. And I went to church and the priest, like, from the pulpit said, "You're a sinner because you have a second car in your garage. You're a sinner because you have these things." And I'm like, "You're a priest in Johnson County. You're a priest in one of the wealthiest counties in
Right.
Kansas.
You're
How are
benefiting
you
too. Right.
saying that?" And I started kind of backing off the traditional Catholic faith and finding my own relationship. Well, then had profound experiences of asking and receiving, where I would say an affirmative prayer and have it reflected back to me. And so I just felt instead of a separateness where God is here and I'm here, I felt God working in me and around me, and so, like, things like coincidence and serendipity and, um, just those sparkly moments, was God being present with me. But I still had this ache and this sadness, and it wasn't until I got sober that I figured out, "Oh, okay, that's what's going on."
Mm. Right. Right. That's very, very interesting. So that probably serves as a really good lesson and way for you to connect with clients when you're able to share that and show them how your faith journey, your spirituality has evolved and changed over time as your needs evolved and changed over time, right? And
Absolutely.
that's okay. That's okay because I think that for a lot of folks we are raised in, like, let's say it's a religious environment, there is a bit of a fear there, right? That you need to conform to things in a certain way, otherwise you won't be okay. And even furthermore, into recovery, there's a fear of relapse if you self will something or if you go down a track of too much doing things your way, which I think there's a healthy balance there, right? Of there's some conformity to like what's good and healthy and safe for people in recovery, but also there needs to be a, a safety feeling of exploring spirituality
Mhm.
and what that means for each person, right?
Absolutely.
What does that look like in terms of therapy, the spiritual psychology piece? Let's get into that.
Okay. So I'll give you kind of the definition that I was given when I was going through the program. So we have life, we have this goal line. It's a horizontal line, right? We have things we want to accomplish in this lifetime. We start with education maybe. Education, then we want to get a job and a career and possibly family and relationship, a home,
Mhm.
etc., right? And we want to
Right.
check those boxes along the goal line. And sometimes through struggle and difficulty, we may reach out for help along that goal line. But all the while, there's this perpendicular line that's going on. And we'll call it or what my school called it was the soul line, right? And the soul line asks questions like, as we're going through this life goal process, things like, what's my purpose? Who am I? What's this all about? Right. And so we want to be able to engage in that conversation through things like meditation, prayer, yoga, taking walks in nature to really allow for the conversation of, okay, I'm going along this goal life plan, but there's something motivating me. There's something bigger. There's something I want to explore. There's something I want to know. And these say therapeutic modalities like a CBT you would go through and give those um steps of what you would do using that therapy. But what happens if you engage a conversation with your higher power while going through that process? What happens if you add um, a mindfulness and a spirituality to trying to achieve this goal along that line? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. What do you think? What is it about your approach when you're meeting with clients about this that works? Because I would imagine this is very difficult, and you get some clients that are like, "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm not doing the God thing. I don't wanna do that." I mean, I know the admissions team, like, I'm working with them a lot about how to talk to people on the front end to make them feel safe and welcome, but also want to come in and give themselves a chance to change their lives, but this is a hot topic. This is one that for a lot of people that fall into addiction, probably had a bad experience, right? Or maybe like kind of what you were describing, like this judgment and you're going to go to hell or you're not going to be enough or you're going to be shunned or ostracized. That's been something that's turned people away. I oftentimes hear, "Oh, do you guys do the 12-step thing? I don't want to, I'm not into the God thing," and they immediately kind of turn away or you almost lose that rapport, that connection. What is it about your approach that allows you to still connect with them with this being such a hot topic?
You absolutely have to meet them where they are. And so we encourage the 12-step program at MRC. They go to meetings. The 12 steps are on the wall. They see that as something that we're prescribing.
Mhm.
And so if we're not addressing the one of the biggest components of the program, which is the spirituality of the program, then we're ignoring something. And if people come and say, I don't wanna talk about the God thing. It's being present with that and saying, "Okay, I understand." And being in that space of being able to find out more about that, like, finding out why. Maybe there's religious trauma there, you know? Maybe there is I was raised with it and I saw that it was contradictory to the way my family was living their life, and I don't wanna subscribe to something that I don't believe in. But what is so remarkable about these 2 guys, Bill and Bob, who come up with this program and, write this book in 1939, they both had spiritual experiences, very different from one another. One was like a lightning bolt moment where it was like, I had this experience and I felt the presence of God. The other was more slow coming. He really gained it from service work, right? He really gained it from helping others. That's his understanding of higher power. Both are valid, both are real, both are spiritual, both are individual. And when we really celebrate the individuality of people's spirituality, that's when we can have that conversation. Is like, if somebody was brought up in a religion that they love, that makes them feel good, that they feel connected to, we get to say, "Okay, plug that in to your experience or to the 12 steps, to the program." Whenever you see God, universe, higher power in the book, that's what you plug in. And then there's people that are like, "I'm atheist. I don't want anything to do with that conversation." And you get to talk to them about what it is that they love. What do you love? What fills you with peace? What fills you with serenity? And encourage that to be something that they start to understand or rely on. One of my favorite, experiences with somebody like and it's an evolution, it's a came to believe that a power greater
Mhm.
than ourselves could
Right,
restore us.
right. I love those words.
Right? Came to, like, it takes whatever it takes, however long it takes, right?
Yes,
One of
yes.
my favorite stories about this, somebody shared about how they brought a topic to the meeting and that people's answers were their higher power. That's how their higher power worked in their life, was hearing the different, you know, comments on the topic that they brought forward. And I think that's amazing and beautiful and a way to look at some people talk about, like, random acts of kindness and things that are done, in such a anonymous way as being part of their spirituality. You have people connected to nature, like, deeply connected to nature. And when you start to talk about, like, I joke, but, like, I'm like, "I know God because little squirrels get nuts in their mouth, and they forget where they plant their little acorns, and that's how we get trees." That, to me, is spiritual. It's beautiful, it's amazing. The bee cycle of life and how they pollinate the flowers, and, there's a perfection that when you tap into it regarding nature, there's a spirituality there. There's something other, there's something bigger. And if that is something you can plug in to your conversation about higher power, then they can suddenly connect to the language, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a lot of really, really good points that I feel connected with. I think the sense of community at MRC,
Yeah.
when especially the long term program, the folks that went through detox residential and they know one another and they live in the structured housing together and they're going to meetings and they're doing their chores at the house or their activities or whatever and they're bonding, they're spending time together, right? And they're trusting one another and they're watching one another challenge themselves and grow. And I think that there is a lot of that. I feel like God speaks through other people oftentimes, right? Big time, and that sense of community, right? I mean, that's such a powerful thing because it bonds us together, it keeps us connected, and it also is like a real-time demonstration in front of us of how to do this crazy thing called life, especially sobriety, and so you can trust it, and you can give yourself to the process when you see other people doing it.
Right. Right. And something that I share with the clients is when we're troubled with something, when something's really worrying us, when we share about it, when we offer it, whether it's at meetings or whether it's with our sponsor or our therapist, when we share about it, this gives our higher power, whatever you may call it, opportunity. It gives our higher power opportunity to act through people, to act when the therapist is talking, maybe there's an aha moment as a result of something that they've shared. Or if they offer it at a meeting, just like my friend who shared about that, like they get that feedback, that immediate feedback, and they get to see how God can work through other people by being vulnerable and asking for help.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Man, I have so many questions, but I know that we don't have all day, but let me go into so kind of zooming out on a larger picture, just the recovery process. What being somebody who comes from the spiritual psychology side of things, right? And your motivations coming the way you approached coming into this role, what does it look like, the recovery process to you? If you could sum it up, like what are the most important pieces or how should recovery be approached when you're trying to help somebody? What is like the framework that you think is important to keep in mind when it comes to a recovery process?
I think MRC has nailed it, personally. I do,
I do
because
too.
we have to address recovery in 4 levels, right? We have to, address it physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's written in the big book. We have an allergy of the body, an obsession of the mind, and a spiritual malady. So we have to approach recovery in all those areas. So if we just deal with the detox, right? Physically, substance is gone out of our bodies. We're left with what about our thinking? What about our emotions? What about our spiritual life? If we're not addressing those things. So MRC does the detox, physical part of it, where our incredible medical staff is addressing the needs of the clients. Then you have the mental and emotional, where our therapists are doing groups and they're teaching about different modalities of therapy and they're teaching about the way we use how our thinking can, how we need to shift that and have a psychic change in order to remain sober and how we change our behavior, how we deal with our emotions, learning coping skills. Like we have tons of groups on learning coping skills, right? But then there's this spiritual component. And what we get to do is, in my opinion, when we're meeting the client where they are in that conversation, and we are saying yes to wherever that is, we can continue to highlight how spirituality is a major component of recovery, because when we realize that we're not alone, when we realize that there's a source out there, when we feel like the world is out to get us, and we can say, "But God, please help me," there's relief, there's peace, there's serenity that's available. So it's being willing to meet where they are while also giving them hope.
Mm, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm so proud of how much MRC has evolved and changed over time. I mean, when I came through and I was a client, it was just the structured housing with the PHP program. It was just the 90 and then year-long program. And so to think about how we have that detox residential that addresses that physical piece, and then they start to address some of the more mental piece and emotional, but then the longer that folks stay, the more they have time to really develop a recovery process, right? And that's a complex thing, right? It's a design for living. It's not just, "Oh, I'm gonna take this medicine or I'm gonna do the antibiotics and then I'm good," right? Like some people, they'll call our admissions team and they just wanna do detox. And so we do a lot of work with whether it's motivational interviewing or how to talk to those individuals and how to meet them where they're at and figure out what's important to them, right? What is their pain point or what is their focus? And try
Right.
to explore further through that, right? And kind of confront that, like, listen, as much as it would be nice to just take the magic pill and be done and move on, that's not how this works.
No.
I mean, it's a whole different way of living. That's a
It's
very large ask.
it oh my goodness, it really is one of the conversations I have very frequently is, like, we do all these things, especially in the 30 to 90 day part where we're really trying to build a program of recovery. And we do all these things and we start to feel better and we start to engage in life differently. And we wake up and we feel great. So we stop doing the things that make us feel good.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
stop doing things like, I'm going to write a gratitude list every morning. I'm going to pray and say, please help every morning. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to take my meds. I'm going to eat a nutritious breakfast. I'm going to walk outside and take a deep breath of fresh air. I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna call another alcoholic. I'm gonna, talk to my sponsor. All of these things that are creating a program of recovery that we can lean on. We wanna stop because we want it to be easy, We want it to be that we wake up and we feel great. And so part of this process that I think is really I think personally the biggest challenge is the you have to work at this. You have to work at creating a relationship with a higher power. You have to work at, um, creating your coping skills, the ones that you know that you can rely on. Um, Journaling, meditation, prayer, like all of these things, if we don't use that muscle, it's like going to the gym. All of a sudden, I'm in shape and I feel great, so I'm gonna stop?
Right.
Yeah. It's we gotta
Yeah.
we gotta keep doing all those things to keep us going in recovery.
It's so easy to rest on our laurels and to forget that part of the process is to just love the process, right? Like the whole process of recovery and the spirituality piece is the point, I think, right? And so rather
And
than finding like comfort and soothing peacefulness just in the end result, it's kind of that journey of constantly pursuing it, right? That we want to try to fall in love with. So,
so, years ago, like 2006, right, I was in a place of, like, total gratitude, and I was talking to God driving in LA. It had rained, so it was clear, you could see the mountains in front of you and the beach in the back, like, it was just a pristine day, and it was December. So it's Christmas time, which is weird in LA because there's, like, Santa and the palm trees and stuff, and, like, it's it's very strange, but I was driving to my job that I loved, and I was in this, like, profound state of gratitude, and I was just going on, "I'm grateful for my job, my car, my life, my da 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 da," and just talking to God, crying, and I say, "You know what, God? I'm gonna see you as a blue butterfly today." And I drive into work, I park, there's a coffee shop right next to my work, and I go in and I'm talking to the barista, giving her my order, but I'm distracted because there's a mirror in the back, and so I can see what's going on behind me. And the other barista is decorating a Christmas tree with nothing but blue butterflies.
no way.
So from the time I said, Um, "God, I'm gonna see you as a blue butterfly," and seeing those butterflies was like 2 to 5 minutes. like,
Wow.
no time at all. So, the blue butterflies became a talisman for me. It was anytime I would see a blue butterfly, I knew it was God. People have given me, like, gifts of blue
Oh, I
butterflies. "You see
love
a blue
that.
butterfly back there."
Oh my gosh,
Um
I love that.
yeah, and so that's been a big story. So, cut to when I'm interviewing for MRC, right? I've had this great conversation with the clinical director, and then, the assistant clinical director is walking me around and taking me, from detox, like, over to here, and she's like, "And this would be your office if if you join us." And in the office was the desk, the chair, the desk, the chair, and the bookcase, and in the bookcase was a pillow, and this
Wow.
was the pillow.
Oh, man. Holy cow.
So
How cool is that?
when I came through the doors of MRC, I knew that God wanted me here.
Yeah. Wow, that is so touching, I love that. Oh, that's so fun. Oh my gosh. Well, we're very, very lucky to have you, Lark, and we so appreciate your presence because I think it's such an important thing to remember. It's so easy as humans to forget to notice the God winks and the God moments in between the crazy moments of our life and our goals and pursuing those goals and thinking that we're responsible for it all. It's important for us to sit back and reflect on, the presence of God in our lives. So.
Yep, and all those things, like the little kindnesses and the moments of coincidence and serendipity, if you start to call them God, higher power, universe, when you start to call it that, you start to see it more and you start to feel that presence in your life more.
Well, I'm certainly gonna be practicing that, and I think our viewers and listeners are probably gonna be, going on some special missions now to kind of call their higher power into their life and see what they can
Yes.
manifest, so well, thank you so much, Lark, for talking with us today and being on the podcast, Finding Mental Wellness. I think this is certainly a really good topic for people to find their own mental wellness, and hopefully we got a lot of inspiring moments for our viewers and listeners, and, I just wanna say thank you very much for your presence and for being here at MRC.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure being here, and Taylor, I'm beyond grateful for the assistance that you gave, my loved one that went through the program.
Absolutely. It is my absolute pleasure. And again, for all of our viewers and listeners, if you or a loved one are in need or do need help, please know you can reach out to our admissions team anytime, 24/7 at 816-597-1177, whether that's for mental health or substance abuse or whatever it is that you or your family is going through. We are here for you. Lark, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for being
Thank
part of
you.
the family.
It's my pleasure.